Today I'm going to be talking about this Lego ukulele that I built. We're going to talk about some of the requirements that I had before I started the project. We're also going to talk about some of the non-Lego parts that I used on this. I'm also going to talk about some of the rules that I broke of Lego building during the process of this. So let's get right into it. So there have been some other examples of Lego ukuleles that I've seen on the internet. Some were really cool. Actually, they're all cool. But I wanted to make sure that mine fit certain criteria. These are the standards that I wanted to hold myself to. One of them was that I wanted it to be able to be tuned to regular ukulele tuning. That's generally G, C, E, A. I also wanted that tuning to be stable, so you wouldn't have to come back to it, in a matter of hours, and it'd be completely out of tune. I also wanted it to have what I call the Lego bucket look. Growing up, my experience with Lego was you had a big bucket of Lego, dumped them out, had fun with them, built stuff, and then you threw it back in the bucket, and there was lots of random pieces. See on this, all sorts of colors. And that was my experience with Lego, so that's kind of what I want to replicate for the look on this, the Lego bucket look. In this process, there were some non-Lego parts that I used. I'll highlight those now. So one of them was I used a wooden regular style ukulele bridge. I also used a wooden fretboard that I made myself. On this fretboard it has traditional metal fret wire. Up here on the headstock we have 4 different geared tuners of different colors. And those, of course, are not Lego. They have the gears to help it keep in tune, make it easier to tune. You won't be able to see this, but in the neck, starting up here, all the way down, I had a channel that I made, and I epoxied a carbon fiber tube in the neck, and that would help with the stability and the strength of the neck. So in this process, I ended up breaking some of the rules that people use when they're building Lego creations. So one of them is that I actually destroyed some bricks in the process. I used a couple base plates, one for the top and one for the back. And after I figured out the shape that I wanted to do, I went ahead and trimmed off the extra. So I did that for the front and also for the back. Another thing that I did was I cut into what would be traditionally called a nut up here. I cut into that to give the strings the proper height. I drilled into the side for the tuning machines. And so in the process, I did end up destroying or modifying heavily some of the pieces. Along with cutting the pieces, I also used glue to keep it together. I mentioned earlier that I used epoxy in the neck, and then also all the other pieces were glued together with super glue. And even though that kind of goes against some of the building rules that people use, it helped this maintain its stability in tuning and also in design. When I was building this, I decided to use some of the traditional building methods that I've used when I've made traditional acoustic bodied ukuleles. So this is one of my forms that I've used for a soprano ukulele. You traditionally would bend the wood in this form, glue it together, and that's how you'd get the traditional figure 8 style body. So when I was designing this, I helped make the body by inserting the pieces in the pattern that would fit within this mold. Another thing that I did that's kind of more in the traditional ukulele building vein is I glued pieces on the inside of the top and back. For acoustic instruments, this is called bracing, and it helps maintain the strength that it needs and also some of the rigidity of the top and back to get that resonant sound. If I were to do a similar project like this in the future, there's a couple things I would do differently. Even though I like the look quite a bit with all the different colors, it would be also interesting if I chose a single color and did all the bricks out of that. That might make sourcing it a little bit more difficult. For this one, I actually went to a local Lego reseller, and they had this large bin of pieces you could pick out and just buy them in bulk. So if I were to do that and source all the same color, maybe like a wooden color, brown color, or just any color that I want, that might be a little bit difficult to source those easily for all the different parts that I used. I'd also probably end up bracing the top and back just a little heavier. We're getting a little bit of bowing action here at the top, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, some builders strive to have a little bit of flex on the soundboard when they're making their ukuleles, and that just kind of shows that you built your ukulele but you didn't overbuild it, and it's strong enough to be played but light enough to be resonant. So that's all about my Lego ukulele that I built. Now let's go ahead and hear a sound sample. Thanks for watching.